Madam Speaker, I find it amazing that the gentleman from Ohio would argue that we shouldn't give appropriations to the Department of Justice. Congress votes appropriations for every department. And if you think the Department of Justice is not being run properly, well, there's a presidential election coming up. That's the purpose of elections. And at the present time, the American people, 2 years ago, elected Joe Biden president and Kamala Harris vice president, and the president appointed the Secretary of Justice and the chairman of the FTC, both of whom I think are doing an excellent job, but it's a matter of debate which can be decided in the next presidential election. And to argue that we should starve agencies of the United States government so that they cannot do the job for which Congress passed statutes mandating them to do the job is absurd. And all that the increase in fees does is update, because the last increase of fees was I don't know how many years ago, and there's been inflation.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my breakdowns of what's really happening in Congress. So we've got another clash between Jerry Nadler and Jim Jordan on the House floor from 2022. Nadler basically stood up and said he was shocked that anyone would dare suggest Congress shouldn't shovel more money into the Department of Justice. According to him, if you don't like how the DOJ is being run, well, just wait for the next election. That's his answer.
And we need the enforcement against the large big tech companies because, as Mr. Jordan already acknowledged, they represent a threat. I think he thinks they represent a different threat from the one I think they represent, but everybody agrees they represent a threat, and their power must be properly supervised by proper enforcement of the antitrust laws. I reserve.
The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I would just point out, I didn't say that Congress shouldn't appropriate dollars to federal agencies. What I said is we shouldn't give more money to the DOJ in light of what we've seen them do, in light of what 14 whistleblowers have told us over the last several months, what they're up to. That's a completely different point. I'm all for looking at ways to cut certain agencies and reduce government and the power that they have, but I didn't say that. I just said we shouldn't be giving them more money, for goodness sake, in light of what they've been doing. I think that's a pretty reasonable position. Frankly, a position I think the vast majority of the country would have when they look at the actions they have seen from their Department of Justice and the tax money that supports that agency. Again, we reserve, Madam Chair.
Now let's look at Jim Jordan's response. Jordan immediately corrects Nadler, saying, "Look, I never said Congress shouldn't appropriate money. What I said is we shouldn't be giving the DOJ more money, especially after what we've seen from them in recent years, and that's a crucial distinction." Jordan points out that 14 whistleblowers have come forward exposing misconduct inside the DOJ. 14. That's not just a little smoke, that's a 5-alarm fire. And yet Nadler's answer is, oh, just wait until the next presidential election. Sorry, but that's not good enough. What Jordan is saying, and I think most Americans agree, is that when an agency is abusing its power, you don't reward them with a bigger budget. You don't hand them more taxpayer dollars to keep doing the same thing. You hold them accountable. You rein them in. And yes, you cut off the gravy train. And honestly, Jordan's right. This isn't a radical position. It's common sense. The DOJ has been weaponized against ordinary citizens, and pouring more money into it doesn't fix that. It makes it worse. So here's the bottom line. Nadler wants to act like starving the DOJ of cash is some crazy extremist idea. But Jordan's making the case that accountability matters. Until the DOJ proves it can operate fairly and within the law, why on earth would Congress hand them more of your money? What do you think? Should Congress keep giving the DOJ bigger budgets, or should we finally start holding them accountable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. And again, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it.